And then ultimately you have the, or I should say finally, you have the standards views, which are the standards that the designs are being based on, and the future aspects of how those standards may evolve over time. Here's an actual list of view of the individual views on the next two slides. This is right out of the DoDAF, but you can see the various views from the all views, the capabilities, the data and information, the operational and project. Those are covered on this slide. The standards and the systems and services views are covered on this slide. So basically what we're going to be doing now is talking about how you get those views and how you build up the core model so that you can build these views. Okay, we're basically going to walk through the various views. Since our time is limited, we're going to basically take one sample view kind of out of each of the various sections, the architecture, the capabilities, the operational, etc., and discuss them and talk about them. Now, to get started in core, you need to do two things. One, you need to be, when you do build a project in core, you may need to make sure that you're using the DoDAF schema. So when you build your project, make sure you build it based on the DoDAF schema. And also you want to import this DoDAF view template that's identified on the banner on the bottom of the screen. This template basically gives some information and we'll talk about that in a minute, what those templates do, but that gives you information to help you build, the various views. Okay, all of this information is described in the help document. Now, the help document you can get by basically running any of the DoDAF views, and when you run the script, you'll see in the lower left it allows you to open up the help file. That's the document that appears on the right-hand side of the screen. That's the help document. It walks you through all the things that we're going to be covering today. Basically the templates that you have to import and how you need to build up the database so that you can produce the various views. Also, to help you build the model itself, there is a new architecture design guide for DoDAF 2.0 that will answer a lot of the questions you may have that's related to just building the architecture itself. It goes above and beyond the information you needed to conduct the views. It's more complete discussion of the architecture. Okay, when you import the template, you basically will get a new class of elements in the database. It's called a document format. And there are a set of document format elements for each of the views. So, for example, when you load that into core, you'll see, for example, the AV1. You'll see all of the various views, a description of the view, and that description is the exact wording right out of the DoDAF manual. So that's what basically the DoDAF manual says what should appear in that view. There's a couple of very important relationships that one needs. First of all, every view needs to be formatted by a document format element. Okay, that's what appears on the right. The document format element, as far as the DoDAF views are concerned, the key item is that attribute called element descriptions. Each view can have a list on it at the end of the view, at the bottom of the view, a list of all of the elements that appear in the view and their descriptions. That's called an element list. And that will appear in the view if this attribute is true, or that list can be removed from the view by setting it to false. So you can play around with that when you start building the views to get a feel for what these views look like, either with the list or without the list. And you can have either a common set of, I should say, document format elements and use them across all of them, or you could have individual ones for each view, depending upon how you want to set things up. A couple of another very important attributes that would be should be the augmented by attribute relationship. You can have any view, you can be augmented by additional information that you provide either from external file elements, hyperlinked to external documents, or through text elements, which would have data in the database. That supplemental information can be included along with every view. So, and that's not just limited to one or two views, but to every view can be augmented by additional text, graphics, tables, etc. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the all view. Okay, in particular, we're going to talk about the AV1. And the AV1 basically identifies the project's visions, goals, objectives, plans, activities, etc. So to produce an AV1, when you look at that, and you'll see exactly the same thing in the help document, you'll see this core implementation. The core implementation tells you what data elements need to be built up in the model to produce this view. Now, if there is, basically for the most part, if, for example, you don't happen to put in one of these items, it just means that item won't appear in the view. For the most part, you won't get any messages to that effect. It will just, the view will include only the information you included. But this basically represents a complete set of information for that view. So for example, basically in all of the views pretty much start with the architecture element. So you have to have an architecture element in your database. That is one item that if it's not there, you will get an error message so that when you try to run the various views. And so, for example, this particular view is going to look at the architecture element and pull from it its description, its purpose, its scope, and its time frame. It's going to pull from it those attributes. It's going to look at the relationships and build up further information. So, for example, if the architecture achieves a mission, that mission's description will be included. If that architecture element is augmented by an external file, text, graphics, tables, or a text element, then that information will also be included in the view. For example, the augmented information or the description of the text element. If you have if the architecture is supported by any goals, those will be identified in there. Along with any organizations that are assigned to the architecture and any performers that the architecture is composed of, as well as any capabilities that the architecture specifies. Okay, so for example, okay, here is an example of the core environment. Here is our architecture element, okay, and here are the various relationships, okay. So that AV1, when you run it, this is what the document itself will look like, okay. And just expand that out. So here's what the final document looks like. here is, this is all of the various views have have a corresponding header, and they all start off with a definition statement as to what the view contains. That's from DoDAF. Okay. In here you have, for example, the description statement for the architecture. This particular one was augmented by a graphic. Okay. And then down here you see some additional attributes like the purpose, the scope, and the time frame. And here are some of those relationships like a mission statement, some goals, and then finally a hierarchy of the elements that the architecture is composed of, along with the capabilities, the top-level capability that it specifies. At the end of the document, you see this refers to that engineering list, I should say that element list that I referred to, that you could turn on and off by that element description attribute of the document format. That's what this list is, either present or not present depending upon the value of that attribute. So that's basically an architecture view. Okay. So now we'll talk a little bit about the capability views. The capabilities basically are the capabilities that the architecture is supposed to meet, and basically, for the most part, the time frame and that it's going to meet, and the various engineering elements that the capabilities are going to affect. These are all covered in the various capability views. So let's take a look at the CV2, the capability taxonomy view. This is a view that presents the hierarchy of the capabilities that are referenced through the architecture. And for each of these capabilities, okay, so we basically again start with an architecture element, and it uses the relationship specified by. So the architecture is specified by a capability. That capability can be further defined by other capabilities using the refined by relationship. So the higher level capabilities are refined by more detailed capabilities. And for each capability, we're going to see information like its name, description, rationale, benefit, and priority. So here's an example of the CV2. So again, the CV2 starts off again with the description statement. In this case, it presents a hierarchy of those capabilities, and followed by some attribute information such as the description and the priority, and for those elements that the capabilities that have them, their rationale and their benefit. So that's a CV2, a capability view. So the capabilities will basically are going to be handled by aspects within the operational views. The operational views also basically describe what's happening on the operational side, the various operational activities, the information, that is the operational information that's being exchanged between the operational activities. That's the inputs, outputs, and triggers, along with the need lines that transfer those the operational information. So all that is discussed in the operational views. We'll take a look at one of them, which is the OV5A. The OV5A is an operational activity. Again, here's a description followed by the core implementation. You notice that again, everything is pretty much starting from the architecture. Okay, in this case, to get to the operational side, the capability, we basically go through